Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Healers and Healing. You're in the Awaken Your Medicine community. And my name is Brighid Murphy. If we don't know one another, if you're brand new to this group or maybe you haven't been around in a while, thank you for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. I am a shamanic healer, mentor, and I help healers and next generation leaders to step into their power so that they can take their work into the world. So I offer deep level one on one programs, group trainings, and I also run a Path to Power community here online where I help folks to communicate with spirit and get their own answers so that they're in power. So if you're interested, of course, there's always more information. But the reason why I chose to come on today in Healers and Healing, and again, I do this every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern time. I offer a 15 or 20-minute mini segment, mini training on something that has to do with the topic of healers and healing. Hey there, everyone. Hey there, Jonna. Hey there, Virginia. Hey there, Lonnie. Yeah, if you're on here, say hello. Let me know you're here. I love to know who's here. I love that this community is participatory. It's so much feels so much better when I hear from you. It's okay to like be a voyeur and lurk in the background sometimes, but this in these times we really need to be connected. So hearing from you is important. And someone just said you couldn't find it wasn't easy to find me. Not really sure why. I came on a couple minutes past noon. That might have been it. But I want to hear more, Lonnie, of what happened that you couldn't find me. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, you don't have to tell me now. But anyway, so here we are, Wednesday, noon Eastern Time, Healers and Healing. And today's topic is three things that all healers need to know for these times, for this time. I chose this topic because it's not necessarily easy to be in the role or in the field of healing, to be a healer in these times. It's not easy. It's one thing to have a modality that you offer and you want to help the world with whatever it is you do, right? It's another thing to traverse this landscape that we're in right now and help others at the same time. So that's why I chose this topic. Hey, Tara. So let's start with what a healer is. Let's start with what a healer is. And let me know, just give me a little emoji, make sure y'all can hear me and that I'm coming through loud and clear while I'm on here. Just tap a little like or a heart or say something so I know that you can hear me. And I'll wait. Always a 20-second lag. Okay, thumbs up means you can hear me. Good, we are on, we're on. Great. So we're starting out with what a healer is. A healer, a helper, space holder, however you want to frame it. Some people don't like the word healer. It took me a while to grow into using that and be in a good relationship with what that means. Healer is a sacred conduit who holds space for something new to unfold. A healer is a sacred conduit that holds space for something new to unfold. A healer doesn't force that. A healer doesn't manage that. A healer guides that. A healer guides people. A healer guides a process. And a healer recognizes also that they are an empowerer, someone who empowers other people to be well. So a healer is an empowerer. And a healer knows that healing is not all in the doing. We don't do the healing. So it's not all in the doing, but there are things that we need to do, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It's not all in the doing. It's also in the being. And I want to break that down and talk about what exactly that means, because being is not just about radiating your light. That might be part of it. but there's more that is required in the state of being. We'll talk about that. So when it comes to holding space for a person, when it comes to doing healing work, there's both the doing and the being. So we're going to start out with, what does a healer do? Let's start out with the doing. And if you're just joining us now, or you are maybe coming in on the replay, I'm glad you're here, however you jumped in. This is our weekly Healers and Healing, and we're talking about 3 things that all healers need to know for these times. And so the being of the doing. First, we started out with what a healer is. I talked about a healer being a sacred conduit who holds space for something new to unfold. And within that, there's being and there's doing. We're going to start with the doing. What does a healer do? A healer sets up the container for a session. And all of this information applies to you. If you are a healer who has a modality that you get paid to do, and it also applies to you. Most of this applies to you. If you are a healer who holds space for other people, same things happen, whether or not you are set up professionally to do this. So a healer sets up the container for the session. If you're working in a professional way where you have an office, you have your container set up. Your treatment space is clean. You have the right kind of music on or off. You have made sure there's not a lot of distractions, right? You've set up your container. That's something you have to do in your healing practice. If you don't have a healing practice, you're doing a similar sort of thing. If somebody comes to you and they need help, you're going to make sure you kind of take them into a space in your home, or if you're on the phone with them, you're going to make space to be present. And you're going to make sure that there aren't dogs barking and kids running in and out of a room if somebody that you're helping is in a crisis. You're going to create a container. Hey there, Leah. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, if you're hopping on, go ahead and let me know you're here. I'd love to know who's here. Say hello, hello. So you're setting up the container for the work that you're going to do. The other thing that you do as a healer is you tell other people that you're available to help them. You either do your own marketing or you grapevine it, you do word of mouth. The doing is letting people know you're doing it. It's an absolute myth that the healers of the world are just known and everybody knows how to find them and everybody talks about them. That's just a crock of shit. If you are a healer, you have to tell people you're doing healing work. You have to talk about it. So that's in the doing. And then there's also the practice of your actual modality. You are doing acupuncture. You are doing, a lot of people don't like the word doing, holding space for Reiki. You are doing therapy. So you're doing or offering whatever it is the modality is that you are accustomed to and work within. You also do in preparation. Part of the preparation is by understanding the nature of the being that you're going to be working with. If you're working with somebody who's 10, there's different things you need to understand about someone who's 10 than you need to understand about somebody who's 45 versus somebody who's 95. So understand the nature of where they come from. And the nature of where that person comes from includes how old they are. It includes where they live. It includes what their racial identity is. It includes their living circumstances, their current stress levels. It includes understanding their ailment or whatever it is that you're physically working or emotionally working on addressing. So those are all in the doing. Another piece that's in the doing is in that you have to follow up with people that you're doing healing work with. You don't just do a session and let them go and don't follow up. There's healing unfolds, right? You're holding space for healing, and healing unfolds, and it doesn't just happen when somebody is in your space. So whether you're doing this professionally or not, you follow up with somebody who's just been with you and received a healing session or a healing something. You check in with them afterwards. That's all part of the doing. How we doing? Hey there, Florence. Glad you found me. I am where I always am. I want to know what happened. Why couldn't you guys find me? Is there a glitch? Is there a glitch on my page? So that's the doing. Y'all with me? Send me a little emoji. Let me know you're here. Got it? We understand the doing part of healing. And now we're going to move into the being. What does it mean to be in the being of the role of a healer? So, being in the role of a healer means that you be and you become comfortable in the unknown. Because when you're working in the realm of healing, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns in how the energy comes through. There's a lot of unknowns in how a person will receive it and process it. And there's a lot of unknowns in what you might experience as you're doing that work. So be or become comfortable in the unknown, which can be absolutely terrifying. But it's one of the ways a healer bees. That's one of the ways that a healer does the being. Be comfortable in the unknown. Another way that a healer embraces being is being confident in another person's ability to heal themselves. Being confident that my client's bodies and minds know how to heal themselves, even if they're way far from it and it doesn't look like it. Being comfortable. Oh, I feel like that's a whole nother segment. Being confident in a person's ability to heal themselves. The best healers that you'll ever meet have confidence in another person's body. And that's what makes it easier to facilitate a healing process. So being confident in that. And then there's the being present. Being present. Being present is more than just radiating your light. Being present is being present for whatever comes up. For whatever comes up for yourself and whatever comes up for someone you're working with. Sometimes that's tricky. Sometimes it's hard to be present for both yourself and the person that you're working with. And this is where some folks, maybe need to pay attention, right? So being present for whatever comes up. Some of the possible things that could come up when you're working with somebody else or holding space for someone else is that they might have fear of what healing looks like. And so you need to be present for that without taking it on, which goes back to being confident in that person's body's ability and their brain and their mind's ability to do healing work. So being present for the fear that they might have about healing, or fear that they might have about having a session if you're doing sessions. Being present for the healees, the person who is receiving the healing or the coaching or whatever it is you're doing. Being present for their body's response to healing work. Being present for that. Being present for their own response, because everybody's body responds differently to healing work, and it doesn't always look like what you think it's going to look like. Being present for unexpected anxiety and worsening of symptoms. That's all part of the healing process. You need to be present for that, and you need to train yourself up and understand what that might look like in a person so that you're ready for it. Because the last thing a healer needs to be is afraid. And the very last thing they need to do is show that fear to their clients. There's no room for that there, because you're not holding a solid space if you're projecting your fears onto a client. And we're still in the being, and I'm going to get to our three things a healer needs to know, all healers need to know for these times, but this is the setup. We need to understand the being and the doing within the healing realm, and then we can move on to the three things that everyone needs to know. So the last part of being, at least on my little list here, is being in touch with your own feelings so that you know when you need to reach outside for help and support from your own mentors. That is really important. A lot of healers run solo and they don't necessarily ask for help, but you got to get good at that if you want to sustain your being and your doing. All right, so far I've covered what a healer is. I've covered the difference between doing and being. Both are important in the healing process. So that's our baseline. We understand there's doing and there's being. And now I want to talk about the three things that healers or empowerers, I like that word, can do in these times. And when I say these times, you know I mean in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of the whole world being turned upside down, in the midst of huge uncertainties, and in the midst of incredible racial injustice. That's what I mean by these times. So, three things that healers, all healers, need to know in these times. All right, you with me? How we doing? Janine, hello, hello. Jessica, hello, hello. I don't understand what you mean. You can't find your way. Would someone help you, please? I don't know what that means. Okay, so this, what I'm going to share, applies to your one-on-one work, and it also applies to group work, and it also applies to actively engaging in global change. The role of the healer is not singular, it's not secular. The role of the healer is big, and it's going to continue to get bigger. The scope is increasing here. So this applies to your one-on-one work, your group work, and to actively engaging in global and social change. So the first thing that all healers need to do is to become a more solid container. This, when I say container, this here, and I'm pointing to my body, but I mean my heart and I mean my soul. This whole thing here is my container. And when I talk container, I'm not talking about something that has a lid and I open and I close. I'm talking about a container that's a vessel that has no lid. It holds, it pours, it receives. That's what I mean by container. So first thing is to become a more solid container by, and I'm going to list out how we become more solid containers. Oh, okay, Jessica, I see what you're saying. You couldn't get the live feed to work. You asked if anyone could help you find the right way. I didn't understand what was happening because you were on the live feed. You were asking the question, but you were already here. I get it now. Got it. Okay. All right. So, becoming a more solid container. First thing to do is to lean in to what you haven't done yet. Take a minute to think about that because y'all know, especially if you've been doing healing work for a while, you know what you haven't done yet. So learning, leaning into what you haven't done yet, and investing in something that's going to help you do what you haven't done yet. And that might be investing in a group training. That might be working with a therapist. That might be working with a coach in an area that you're ready to grow in. I'm going to list out some areas that all healers are ready to grow in, or maybe not. Yes, that all healers can use some growth in. I know I did. I worked with therapists. I have hired coaches. I have done all of that, and that's how I know the power of it and how it's needed right now. So leaning into what you haven't done yet and investing in some type of assistance that's going to help you to grow. If we're not invested, we don't always push ourselves to where we need to be in order to get to the other side. And I'm not talking about learning another modality. Y'all who think you need to get another modality, I want you to just stop that. You don't need another modality. I'm talking about self-development, okay? So areas that you might be ready to grow. One of them is setting up a healing practice and accepting money for it. You might be ready to grow in that area. And if that's you, you just heard that and said, oh yeah, that's me. Another area you might be ready to grow is learning how to talk about your own modality. Learning how to talk about what it is that you do so people can say, oh, they do that? I need that. That's an area that you might be ready to grow. Another area to grow is addressing fears and self-doubts that are holding you back. And that sometimes requires a little shadow work. It requires a little prodding within. But learning how to talk about your own, or learning how to, or addressing fears and self doubts is an area that you might need to lean into right now. Another area is that you might be ready to grow in is learning how to hold space for anger and how to hold space for rage. And that, as soon as I say that, people go running, woo, I'm peaceful. I don't need to do any of that. And I'm going to say, lean in, people. Lean in. Because if you call yourself a healer in this time, if you are holding space, if you are a peacemaker, you need to know how to hold space for holy rage right now. That's what is happening. And learning how to handle that in yourself is going to help you to learn how to handle that for the world at large. So that might be an area that you need to grow in. Learning to be comfortable with anger and rage. Doesn't mean, I don't mean anger and rage toward you. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking, suggesting, is that you become comfortable with the energy of it. Because anger is a part of change. Anger is a part of grief. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. So be ready to grow there. Ready to grow there. So far, let's see. Areas you might be ready to grow in are setting up a healing practice and accepting money for it, learning how to talk about your own modality, addressing fears and doubts so they don't hold you back, leaning into rage and anger so that it doesn't scare you. And the next piece that's an area to grow, and this is if you're a white person, and we got a lot of white healers out here, is to get more training in racial equity and how it's affecting healing, how it affects people's access to healing, and how it affects somebody's ability to do their own healing work. That's a huge topic. So get more training in racial equity and stop being in a place where you don't see color. Even when you're well-meaning and when that comes from a place of wanting to embrace everyone as being one and being connected. That well-meaning, I don't see color, it hurts people of color. And you don't want to do that. If you have brown and black clients or you want to have brown and black clients, get more training in this area. So these are all areas that we can grow in. I do this work for myself, right? I do this. I invest in and hire my own coaches for growing my business. And I invest and hire people to help me to understand privilege because I can't see it all from where I'm at as a white person. So I hire people of color to help me understand what that means because I want to serve all people, not just white people. So I do that work. And to do that, I need to understand where we're different. So you got a long list here, folks, of the first thing you need to do to become a more solid container, and that is lean into what you haven't done yet. And you can go back and listen to this if you want that list again. And we also become a more solid container by understanding spiritual bypassing that's happening in spiritual circles. Do your best to not spiritual bypass. And if you don't know what that means, we're going to lift that and do that topic at another time. Second thing you need to do as a healer in these times is to recognize the similarities between healing a person or holding space for healing. When I say healing a person, I don't mean you're doing the healing, but it's just easier to explain. Recognize the similarities between healing a person and healing the planet and see how those two are connected. A person, when you're working them through a process or doing healing work with them, they need you to be present. And sometimes that requires that you offer extra support. Some folks need more extra support in between sessions. Some people need you to really hear what they have to say before you do their modality with them. Extra support is required. I do this. I reach out more to some of my clients than others because I know that they need it. And I know that they also, it's going to help their healing process. Looking ahead at what type of extra support people are going to need at this time during this pandemic, during all of this racial injustice. Looking ahead and recognizing that when people step back into your container, when people step back into your treatment center, when you start to do work again with people, the needs will have changed and people are going to need extra support. So build that in as you're recognizing the similarities between healing people on the planet. So recognizing the extra support is needed and then be willing to offer it, setting your life up so that you can offer that extra support. And that's the second thing that we need to be doing. The third thing that we need to be doing as healers at this time is to deal with grief, to deal with your own grief and get help with it. It's no longer an option. It's imperative that people who are space holding, who are healers, who are helpers, understand how to work with their own grief. You don't necessarily need to be like some sort of grief counselor, but you need to understand your own grief if you want to do healing work. And you need to understand that because the scope of your job just got bigger. It just got bigger. And if you've been doing this for a while, if you've been helping other folks for a while, you recognize the magnitude of what is happening and that your role within all of this is going to be widened, right? You get it. It definitely has for me in the way that I hold space. Not so much with the one-on-one work, but more with the ceremonial space that I hold. I am recognizing that I need to go bigger and lead larger circles, and I am working in my sphere to do what I need to do to make that happen and to have the capacity for that, because that's what the world is calling for. And that's one of the things that I offer. Not all healers offer that type of ceremonial space, but it's an example of how I need to embrace the what's being called for. Wait, I'm not saying that right. It's an example of how one of the things that I do needs to be offered in a bigger way. That's a better way to say it. But from now on and moving forward, grief is here. Grief isn't going anywhere. You need to deal with yours so that you can help others and help them understand. You need to deal with yours so you can understand how to hold a space where people are going to be coming to you and they're in grief and they might not even know they're grieving. So it's your job as a healer to deal with yours so you can identify it and just say, hey, okay, so this is going to be one of the things I'm dealing with when people come to me. All right, I got this. I don't have all the answers. I don't need all the answers, but I know that the scope has changed because 3 months ago, the level of grief that people were holding collectively was not where it is right now. So, how's that feeling so far? Did you get your pencils out? Because I sure do make a list. How's that feeling? There's one more thing. I know I said I was going to do 3 things that all healers need, but there's one more piece. There's one more piece. Let's just check in and see how everybody's doing. Someone said, is there a difference between doing healing work on people and animals? Sure, there's not. Yeah, there's definitely a difference between doing healing work on people and animals. You need to prepare your space in a completely different way for animals than you need to for people. And I think we could probably go down all of the things that you do for healing and look at how you would do that differently for an animal. Yeah, for sure, Jessica. All right, so a fourth thing, or this is the extra thing that needs to be added in here. And again, I am talking about the 3 things that all healers need to know for this time. And so the next thing is that you need to begin to think about. Doesn't mean you need to do anything about it. Begin to think about what it means to hold a larger space for healing. Begin to think about what that means in regards to group healings, group empowerment, and larger community offerings. What Think about that. And then think about what is it that you as a healer and a space holder offer that your community at large needs. Where is the bridge between what you have inside of you, what you've been doing to work with people and beings, and what your community needs right now? And when you begin to think about that, you then know what it is that you're being called or will be being called to do. So everything I mentioned here is doable. If you made a list here and chose any one of these things to look into further or to embrace more, to lean into, it's all doable. And if you've been called to serve, you really know that your job just got bigger and the scope got wider. So prepare yourself. Use this time to prepare yourself. And if you've been sitting on the sidelines wondering, what can I do with my gifts? I want you to stop wondering and start asking different questions. Start saying, instead of, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do with my gifts, get off that train and get on the train of, I want to know what to do with my gifts. When you say, I want to know, that brings more energy in. And then, I want to know what to do with my gifts. Start following people who are doing something with their gifts that are close to what you want to be doing. Follow them and then make an investment in yourself and enroll in some trainings, which I talked about earlier. Enroll in something that's going to take you to the next level. I've got a kick-ass training that's coming up in July. It's for healers who are ready to step into their roles. If you want more info on that, let me know and I'll get you on the waiting list for that for when it opens so you don't miss anything. So we're going to recap here. Healers and healing, 3 things that all healers need to know for this time. First thing is that healers are conduits and they're empowerers. And there's a requirement for the healer to both be and do. If you are in service, you have a requirement to be certain things and to do certain things. And you can go back earlier in this live and I list them out. So the 3 things for healers and empowerers to do at this time are: number 1, become a more solid container. Get more training in the area that you're lacking. Number 2, recognize the similarities between healing people and healing the planet. And number 3, deal with your grief. Deal with your grief because you're not going to be able to avoid it in your work. You won't be able to avoid it. And to hold a space for the next coming, for what is coming, for what we're in, you've got to deal with it for yourself. And like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, grief wasn't a big deal, right? You didn't need to deal with it. Now you need to. If you're holding space for people, you need to. And it's not that you have to become a grief counselor. You just need to know that as a helper, it's your responsibility to see what the group needs, large group, small group, and the group needs to have their grief addressed, and make space for that in your healing practice. Okay, I have enjoyed sharing this with you. Thank you for showing up. If you want to get on the list for the Sacred Training for Healers that happens in July, then do the raise your hand emoji or tag me and say waiting list so that I can put you on it. And I'll share more information about it as we move on. I'm going to leave some time for questions. Does anybody have any questions? If you're just joining us now, definitely go back to the beginning because this was chock full, chock full of information that all healers need to know for this time. I'll stay on for a couple of questions and see what y'all are thinking. All right. I don't see any questions. So, yeah, go back and revisit this. Stay committed to yourself because we need you. We need all hands on deck. We need all the healers on board, and we need to up our game for moving forward and holding space in a bigger, bigger way. If you want to get on the waiting list for the Sacred Training for Healers that starts in July, tag me and say waiting list or do a hand raising emoji, and I'll make sure that I reach out and get your information and make sure you're on that list so that you can grab a spot when it opens. All right. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye for now.